And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the man's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. Hello everyone and welcome to another tutorial. Today we'll be covering lip syncing. Yes, we will be animating mouths to fit our character's speech. So in order to have a character to animate, we are going to be using Make Human. As you can see, we're already in Make Human. So just let's get started. Okay. Now, because the audio we are going to be using to lip sync our character to is me reading a part of Genesis 44, we definitely need a male character, so let's make him male and let's give him something to wear. Let's go jeans and shirt, give him some shoes, let's give him some hair. Let's make the eyes low poly because we're going to give him a bit of an anime style. That topology is fine. Eyebrows, give him that. Eyelashes, none. Tongue, yes. Clothes, great. Let's go to the eyes. We need to edit the eyes. I just want to edit the age as well. Not by much. Let's go to the face. I'm pretty happy with the face's shape as it sits. We are going to be changing this in Blender, so that's not the issue. So let's just go to the right eye and quickly fix that. We don't have to make major changes here. We just need to adjust small things, approximately like that. Flip that over to the other side as well. Let's take the outer corner of the eye down a little bit. I want it to be just above the inside of the eye. It won't look this droopy when we go into Blender, thankfully. Okay, now we can adjust the nose. Nose has to be a lot narrower. This has to flare out a bit, not too much. I apologize for the dogs barking in the background. We have got new neighbors moving in, and obviously the dogs are not a fan of the activity going on outside. Let's just push that up a little bit. There we go. And of course our mouth. The mouth needs to be a lot flatter on a vertical scale. So let's take it down. Not completely flat, just mostly. And needs to be a little bit wider horizontally. That's good. Let's move out and see what that looks like. Okay, that looks sufficiently creepy, so that means our character is done. Now we can save him. Let's call it lip sync. And save it. I already did a trial run of this, but it just fell apart, so I'm overriding this one. So clicking yes, then go export, use Blender Exchange format, and these you can just leave as is. In this version of Make Human 1.0.2, you don't have to go to Pose Animate to add a rig. It already has a default rig that it adds to the shape, to the character. That is both FK and IK, so you don't need to edit any of this in this stable version. However, in the newer versions you probably do need to add a rig, so just bear that in mind as you work on this. Okay, now let's go into Blender. Okay, in Blender you simply go import MHX, as you can see over here, Make Human, and you just simply go to where it's stored and you import it. Once you do that, you will see the following. As you can see, we have a rig, fully rigged shape. Let's just make it all IK. I know some people prefer FK and all that's fine, but at the moment I absolutely prefer using IK. And that's all we need there. Let's just turn on screencast keys so you guys can follow along. Now I am just going to give him basic toon shaded materials just so we can actually get this going. Because this tutorial is not about modeling, it is about the lip syncing aspect of it, so we just need to run through this. Basically I use toon shading for all my characters over the last few months. I'm trying to get the proper result. I've always seen this has been a bit lacking. So this is not trying to down anybody who hasn't achieved what I would like to see be done. This is really just me pushing for the absolute best standard that I can possibly get. Let's make his hair. Let's make it black. Now usually when you use an animated style, it's usually not pitch black, it's black, a slight gray, and possibly a blue, or if it's pure black, then there's usually a blue or gray specularity. In this case we don't use specularity because it gives us a contrary appearance. We do add a hairband, light band. So let's say light band, go blend. Now because most of his hair is going vertically, we use vertical, and we make this constant as well since it's doing shading. Put it about there, and you set this to reflection, and color is fine. We have to use add. Let's go add. Okay, there we go. Now if you were to check this out, let me just turn the skin off in terms of subsurface scattering. Okay, that should do the trick. Turn on environment lighting. Oh, it's already turned on. Ah, I love a default project. Awesome. And there you go. See, it moves as the character moves. Now, unfortunately, at this point, it's just a little bit too high. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move it down slightly so that it's more along the side of the head instead of on top. You see something like this. If you look at the head from the side, it has to be something like that. Now, when you subdivide it, it's going to obviously look a lot better. For example. But in order to get the best possible look, you do have to erase all these extra little bits that have been added. So let's quickly get rid of those. I'm going to erase this part in the final tutorial just so that we skip over the unnecessary parts. That's good. Now you see this happens over here because the texture cuts off over here. So what you can do is you can simply just drag this and pull it inside the head. Let's get rid of the camera for now. Remember to use proportional editing when you do this kind of stuff. There we go. Oh, way too big still. Too big, too big, too big, too big, too big. I like that. That looks cool. Now let's just pull this in a little bit. As you can see, there's like this huge gap. And it's only on this side. So let's just open that. So we can just draw this in. And that too. Let's see what happens if we do this. And then rotate it. Ah, perfect. I like that. Cool. That looks snazzy. Okay. Now let's see what this looks like if we take it off color and put it on normal so that it gives us that wave that I spoke about earlier. That's too extreme. So let's go 0.5. For some reason it's really overdoing it. Let's go 0.1. What happens if it's on? Oh, the hair is still white. That's my mistake. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, now we can add the normal. Sorry about that. Now, if this is fine for you, you can keep it at this, but I know that sometimes you need a little bit more than that. So let's go 0.1 or 0.01. 0.01 is still too strong, so let's go 0.005. Okay, 0.001. You can work with this if you want to. I kind of like it. I'm going to keep it. Okay, excellent. Go to solid. Now we can add the eyebrow texture. We are going to be using the hair that we had just finished. There we go. I'm going to duplicate it and remove the texture so that it's just a clean black material. We're going to leave the eyebrows quite bushy. Let's add some eyelashes. Let's get rid of these. Eyelashes. These are just going to be a pure black material, so we don't need specularity or anything else for that matter. We do need to give it a what do you call it? Bass index of 5, just like the rest, so we can isolate it later. Some people disagree with this method. That's not an issue with me, but this is the way I do it. If you want to do it a different way, by all means, have fun. This is just the way I do it. 1.28 causes this intersection between the 3 circles. You need that cut there. Smoothness has to be completely down. And of course, no specularity. Haha. Eyelashes are fine. Let's quickly fix the eyes so that they cooperate with what we want them to do. Well, basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flatten the upper side of these eyelashes. Now the reason we do that is because when you look at typical anime characters, they tend to have a very flat eyelid at the top. It really makes the eyes have more of a square-like appearance. Now if you want to, you can ignore the bottom part, since it's already fairly rounded and it looks quite anime-esque, if you will. I kind of like this. Let's just turn up these corners a little bit. I think we turn them down just a little bit too much in Make Human. So let's just take these up a bit. Yeah, I really like that. That's cool. Now let's add the eyelashes. Eyelashes are simply a material we're going to be adding. Now something important to remember when it comes to anime characters is that these areas are not entirely enclosed in black. Black is just something that you use to highlight the fact that these are eyes and that they do have some form of hair around them. That's why we add the black. So just go around the eye. Don't want to overdo it, but we do need to make sure that it's nice and thorough. Let's add that and see what it looks like if we render it. Oh, it's not going to be thick enough. Hold on. Need to make it a little bit thicker at the top. These eyelids are a little bit on the thick side. So let's make it to there. Add eyelashes, and let's change this one to be normal like that. That looks very cool. Let's see what happens if we make this one a little bit thicker. I don't want to overdo it. It's overdoing it. Let's go that. That looks really cool. Now let's see what the camera sees. Change that. Go see. And let's just move the camera in so you can see the eyes properly. About there. And since we already have a sun and all those other wonderful things, let's hit render. That's cool. Now that we have that, we can turn on freestyle. It's already set to 1.1. We already have the other curves. I usually add edge as well. It just gives that little bit of a security whenever freestyle does not respond the way that I would really like it to respond. See, that's the problem with adding edge sometimes. So I'm going to remove that. Actually, in this case, I'm taking it out. Again, I apologize for the dogs. It'd be just easier if the neighbors just got in and stayed in. Anyway, let's continue with the eyes over here. Like I said, this is not the only way to do this. If you have a different method, by all means use that. I'm not trying to push a certain method here. This is just the way I do it. This is the way God taught me how to do it, so this is the way I'm telling you how to do it. It's not the only way though. Let's see, that one goes only 1, this one goes 2. So let's take that around the eye to approximately there. Good. Let's hit the sign. And let's see the bottom part of the eye here. Did I use 3 or 4? I used 4. Okay. So we'll be using 4 again. Sign. And let's look at that. Looks cool. It's just, this looks a little weird. Let's see what happens if I take these out. I think the problem lies with this bottom section over here. Let's see what that does. Looks better, so let's do that on the other side as well. I'm going to taper it off, and we're going to remove these as well. That's what I did on the other side. Almost. You should just make this one like that as well. Seems to be too thick. No, it's not. It's just like that. Okay, now we just need to adjust this side and this side. This looks weird. No, it's not. Okay. Turn off proportional editing for this. So you can just scale it out a bit and take it down. Scale it out. See, that's a little bit more rounded. Now take this bottom one and that bottom one. Expand those slightly as well. That looks much better. Okay, let's hit render on that. I am going to pull these up slightly because it's just the eyelashes at the top are just way too thin for my liking. So I'm going to turn proportional editing on again. Just reduce the scale and smack it flat. So too flat. Does that look? That's better. Let's just turn these in. No, actually, let's take these corners down again. See what that looks like. Okay, that's good. Now we just need to do these eyeballs. See what the texture looks like. Ah, okay, this is going to be easier. Blend, let's call this eye, and go blend, go ramp, and we're going to use quadratic sphere, going constant, making this black, go new one, skipping that one, making this one opaque, and making this one a pure white. That should give us that, and let's give him eye color. Eye color. That's also a blend texture. That's going to be vertical. Flip it around. The black has to be at the top. Let's give him. Let's make it green. Let's give him green eyes. darkish green. Make it ease. Oh, haven't made it toon shaded. Okay, toon shaded. 0.12. Is it 1 point? Yeah, it's 1.28. 128. Yeah, I said 1. Oh, it's 1.28. Ah, sorry about that. I was confused with my own method there for a second. Okay, this goes down. Smoothness is there. And take out transparency. Take out auto ray bias. 5. Full oversampling. Skip stands. And that is one eye. Let's see what it looks like. We go here, turning off freestyle, and going rendered view. It's a little creepy. I think we can make this a little bigger, for one. Approximately there. And increasing the size of this. And now we can also adjust the eye color by taking this down a bit as well. Let's make that eye color stronger. Okay, now if we go solid, and you can simply apply the same material to the other eye. If I am not mistaken, it applies it anyway to both sides. It does. So let's see what that looks like if we select both and we render view that. That looks awesome. Okay, go solid, exit, normal view, press render. I need to just add a few things to the face, like this line that goes over the top of the eye. Control E, mark freestyle edge, same on this side. Just want to see how far it goes. It goes from, wait a second, I think I missed something on the eyelashes over here. I did miss something on the eyelashes. So let's see, haha! Now it's balanced. Now we can go here, over there, and stick in our line above the eye. The line above the eye. Control E, mark freestyle edge. Now if you render that. Oh, sorry, forgot. Freestyle has to be turned on. Awesome. Okay, now let's quickly fix the mouth. Now you have a few options when it comes to fixing the mouth. What I do is I literally change this front part of the teeth, like you saw in the last tutorial if you watched it, by modeling a piece that goes from the first molar over here and crosses all the way around to the molar over there on this side. And that almost looks like a gum guard, but it has some indentation and difference so that it still looks like teeth. I'm going to show you what that shape looks like by removing the rest of the stuff. That's absolutely not necessary. Shirt's not needed, the jeans are not needed, the hair is not needed, the shoes are not needed, the tongue has to stay there. And we also don't need to see the rig. So now I'm going to just go and add those shapes by going append and going to a project that I already have the teeth in. Okay, there we go. Now these are our teeth that we are going to be adding. Oh, wrong thing. We need to be sticking these into the mouth as good as we possibly can. Just make sure that they cooperate in terms of angle, otherwise you're going to get a big mess. So let's just pull that forward and up. That looks good. Take this forward, up, and rotate it as well. Take it forward, rotate it a little bit more. Take it forward. forward, take it down, slightly in. It's not quite the right angle. So you need to scale it along its own z-axis a bit so that it conforms to the mouth. I think this one is also the same situation. It needs to be conformed a little bit more. I think that's good. The angle is just still slightly off though. That's just gonna have to do. Okay, now we need to change these materials as well. Haha! So let's pick a material that's already been finished and already been pass indexed and all those fun things, and call it gums. Actually, let's call it teeth. It's gonna be easier. Okay, we're calling it teeth. As you can see, this is also the eyeball material, so we will be removing that and taking this out, taking that out, and of course that, so that we actually have a seriously decent teeth material instead of that. So let's just quickly select the eyes over here, and okay, it's already been duplicated. And we go teeth as well. Let's go for teeth 0.001, since that's the one that's already been applied to the bottom row. And now we need a new, that same material is added here. It's added to the lower teeth as well. It's already been added, that's great. No, it has not been added already. I'm getting confused here, it's not a good thing. Okay, no, it has already been added, it's just not been added over here. So let's go teeth 01. Okay, that's good. Go to modifiers, fix that, and sorry, now I just need to give the gums a material as well. Looks much better. Let's get rid of the tongue so we can see the rest of the inside of the mouth properly. We are definitely going to be fixing this area over here. It's way too big. Most of the things that we are going to be that we are fixing in this particular instance has already been fixed for the newer releases, so you can really check those out in the nightly builds. However, I would not recommend the nightly builds for production just yet, since there are still some issues being sorted out. So that looks good. Let's go give it a material called gums. Let's select this teeth material we created over here, click that, and call it gums. Simply change the color by going hue, saturation, just to be about there. Okay, that's good. Reduce the specular strength and increase the size slightly, and click assign. Now we need to delete these front teeth that are behind the upper teeth. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into tab again and just mark the teeth that we are going to have to remove. Thankfully we don't have to pull them out. I'm sure the character is also thankful for that. And remove the upper teeth and the lower teeth. See, there we go. Now you can simply select the teeth, not the gums, and remove them. Taking these out. There we go. I see there's always these little surprises awaiting you after you've deleted the stuff you were working on getting out. Again, I apologize for the dogs. I am going to remove as much of that in post as I possibly can, though I cannot guarantee that I'll be able to get rid of all of it. It's amazing how they can get worked up over nothing. Kind of like people. Anyway, let's get rid of those. See, nothing extra. That's good. Now let's quickly fix this back part of the throat. Okay, I've got the face upside down. Here we go. You only need to select some of these and some of these so that we can use proportional editing and just draw it all closer in so that it's about like that. That's much better. Fabulous. If you add the teeth back and you add the rest back, you will see something quite cool when we render the mouth. Oh, let's just quickly give the tongue a different material as well. Let's use gums. Call it tongue. Need to spell it correctly. And make it slightly darker. At least in this case, we're making it slightly darker. See what the camera sees. Now if you hit render, you'll see it's much better. Haha! Now let's quickly fix the inside of the mouth. Make it render specific. Now we need to actually take out the teeth and the tongue again so that we can see the inside of the mouth. Before we close the mouth, we have to fix the teeth, the upper and the lower teeth, to the bones so that when the mouth opens and closes, the teeth don't just sit there. But that we will get to in a bit. I just need to remove these teeth as well. There we go. Now we can work on the inside of the mouth. These we will be using, for these we will be using the same color that we used to create the gums. So you're going to be saying new, add gums, and hit assign, and this part will be made black like the eyelashes, since people do have technically a hole in the back of their mouth. So as awkward as that sounds, let's just put all these things back and let's see what that looks like. Fantastic. Now let's quickly fix the teeth to the jaw bones. So we're going to go with lower teeth and this jawbone over here, and we're going to go Control P and select bone. Now if you try to adjust the bone, let's just go object mode and deselect the other teeth, go back to pose, and now if you go X, see, nice and stuck. Now we just need to attach this teeth to the top part of the head. Since your skull is not exactly flexible, see, there we go. Oh yeah! See, that's great. Now we just need to edit our jaw. So let's close the mouth for now. Don't need it open. Select the body and select a few faces at the bottom of the chin. If you look at typical anime drawings, the chin of the men are typically quite sharp at the bottom. It's flat and then it corners sharply and then corners sharply up. So you don't have to do this in extreme, but this is definitely required to some extent. Say about there. I just want to drag this a little bit inward so that it fits. That's good. I want to select this intersection, pull it out slightly so we can get that corner of the jaw. See what that looks like. That looks cool. Now if you look at this when you render it, I think we should reduce the width over here. so there's just a little bit of a sharper chin. Yeah, like that. Okay, that's good. Give him that little line below the lip, and on the chin, Control E, mark freestyle edge. And that should be the basic stuff we need for our character. Let's just give him some clothes, call this shirt. Make it, I like this kind of blue color. Specularity. Let's make his pants black, so let's go for the gums again. Oh, just need to select that and call this pants. Make them darker about there. Take off the specularity and reduce the saturation. That looks cool. And just for the fun of it, we're just going to give the same material for the shoes as well. For the shoes, make them darker and shinier. Let's give it a bluish. Call the size down. Take that down too. That looks awesome. Okay. Okay, now for the fun part. Now we get to do the animation setup for the lip syncing. Now what I usually use is, at least with this version of Make Human, is I use shape keys. So what you have is you have your basis, and what you add on your basis is an O. What you do is you turn that up, select so that it's viewable in edit mode. What I want you to do is I want you to select the outer corners of the mouth and draw them in using proportional editing. I want you to do this in a few steps. There we go. We have to do this to quite a bit of an extreme. And do this over here. Put that up, not all the way, just somewhat. And pull these forward so that it's more like a whistling type deal. So now when you do that, you have your O. Now the reason we use the O is because we are only doing a 2-level lip sync. What that means is we have 2 sets of animation. We have the jaw that goes open and closed, and then we have the mouth that goes closed. See, for more. And what we can also do here to just get this looking a little bit nicer is we can just close the mouth. Hold on. Now I want the blue one. Just close the mouth. I want to give him a smile because what he's reading is actually very good. So let's add another one. Call it smile. I want to add it below the O. Personal preference, not required. And just pull up the corners of the mouth, pull them out, and pull them back, and a little bit more up. So let's select a piece like that. Whenever you smile or something like that, it doesn't just affect one little section, it affects the skin, because the skin is almost like a rubber. See? So instead of going down, I actually want it to go slightly upward. Just increase the size of that, and let's see what that looks like. Much better. Okay, so now he has a bit of a smile as well. Let's render him with the smile. Should create a little line in there. See? That looks good. Okay, fantastic. Now it's save. I recommend saving quite often. Okay, since we have our character fixed, now let's add our audio file. So go File, Video Sequence Editor, and go Add. Just add whatever sound source you have. You can record something from a story that you wrote, an essay that you wrote, a blog post that you wrote, or whatever. This is purely to learn how to do this properly. I'm going to add the original file that I used to record Genesis 44 with. So I'm not going to add the whole file, I'm just going to add a 30-second segment. So let's go sound, and that is added nicely in there. We're going to definitely be needing our waveform. This helps us animate. So you can see that, for example, the Genesis 44 starts out with saying "and he," and the reason that I'm showing you this is because the "and he" is almost like "and he." So you have to look for a little gap like this. This helps with your timing immensely, so I absolutely recommend doing that. So hit save. Now we also need another audio file which is going to be based on this same audio file. So what I want you to do is for now go into Audacity or whatever audio editor that you use. I'm using Audacity. Specifically I use 2.0.6. I know there's a newer version, but I've had some issues with some of the plugins and all that kind of stuff. If you try to apply it a second time, it just crashes. So I'm just not even going there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what to do with this audio file in order to achieve a proper animation file. We're going to be baking this sound to the jawbone. So this will just purely open and close the mouth. That means that we have to remove certain sounds. Now what we are doing is we are animating our jawbone with an audio file. In order to do this properly, we do need to remove certain sounds that open the mouth when it really should not be opened. So I'm going to play you a piece of this file. This is a clean file. Let me quickly play you a bit of it. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, "Fill the man's sacks with food, as much as they can carry." See, it's just a basic reading. What you can do for music videos, for example, if you were hired to do a music video for a Vocaloid music piece or whatever, I don't know if it exports lip syncing or whatever, what you can do is you don't even have to be able to be on pitch. What you just need is good timing. You can still produce this kind of file because nobody's going to hear it. It's simply baked to a curve. So even if you're completely off pitch, even if you're just speaking the thing, you just need to add that volume in order to open the mouth properly for the song. So what I recommend is just having a consistent breath and all that kind of stuff. So you can also use this for creating music animations. What you can do in this case is you need to remove the F. The reason for this is that when somebody says F, they usually slightly blow through a gap that you form with your bottom lip and your upper teeth. Since we're not going to be animating this, we're going to be following the approach that some other people do, where they simply just close their mouth slightly and blow through their lips, almost as if they were sucking through a straw or something. In order to do that, you just need to look for an F. Now, since I've been practicing this tutorial a few times, I know that the F sits right there, as you can hear. So what you can simply do is go Effect and reduce the noise by getting your noise profile, and select the whole thing by going to noise removal again, and make sure that your settings are similar to this. I have noise reduction of 10, sensitivity of 1.46, frequency smoothing of 150, and an attack decay of 0.15, and noise is set to remove. Now what I do is I do this a few times, so that we can get it almost completely eradicated, like that. Now if you listen to it, you'll hear that there's a reduction in quality. That's why we only use this kind of file for animation instead of the playback. So listen to it. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, "Fill the man's sacks with food, as much as they can carry." You can hear that it's distracting in terms of the quality. The removal of the F also removes other frequencies, since this is not a biased kind of noise removal like your ears are. So whatever you remove does affect everything else. So let me play you that again so you can hear it. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, You hear that dim, it dims out. So what you do is you export that, go File, Export Audio. Okay, as you can see, I have a file folder called Audio Files Needed. I'm going to be using WAV as a format in this case, and we're going to be calling it Genesis 44 Bake. And we're going to save that, and we don't need to bother with that, and that's cool. Now let's go back into Blender. Now in Blender, again, we can go to 3D View, and we need to select our jawbone. For you to be able to bake something to a curve, you actually need a keyframe. So go into your graph editor as well, and simply add a rotational keyframe here and remove everything except the x-axis. Now I'm going to show you why I say only the x-axis needs to stay. So let's just get rid of that and that as well. Now if you rotate this and you press X twice, it goes to local rotation to the bone. And if you rotate it along the x-axis, see what it does. It only hinges on the x-axis. That's why we bake it to the x. So what you can do is you can just make sure that the mouth is properly closed. That's good. And now you can insert your keyframe again so that we can just fix it. And again remove the extra stuff. Now you can select your x-axis, go key and go bake sound to F curves. Select your bake file. Okay, now this is a very, very important step. Below here you will see you have certain frequency options, lowest frequency, highest frequency, and all those fun things. In order to fix these are not the default values, you need to adjust them to the following. Your lowest frequency remains 0, your highest becomes 50,000. Your attack time has to be 0.002, your release time has to be 0.050, and your threshold remains at 0. You keep these unticked unless you add more than one phrase to the section. What I would recommend in those cases is just simply making your audio file correct from the get-go. I know that's not always possible when you animate very difficult scenes. In those cases I would simply just say use additive. And square has to remain unticked, but your square threshold has to be 0.6. These settings work, I recommend them. If you don't like them, that's your problem. Okay, so if you play this back now, you'll see that the curve is way too intense. Let me show you. And he commanded the steward of his house. That's awesome. Okay, so let's open this up, and we can modify this by adding an envelope modifier. This means that our frame is going to need a control point. That's at frame 1. Our animation needs a control point, not the frame, sorry. The minimum has to be 0.0005 or 0 depending on where your jawbone has been keyframed, and your maximum has to be 0.1, minimum value of 0. Now if you play this back, you'll see that his mouth is a lot more controlled. See? Isn't that cool? Now for some people, leaving it at this is absolutely what they were looking for, and that's great. But adding the O really adds a bunch of quality. And I showed you that at the start of the tutorial before speaking to you. So let me just quickly play this back for you so that you can see what it looks like. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the man's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, There's an alignment problem over here. Seriously, alignment issues. So let's go into our VSE. Oh, that's the issue. It's the sync mode. It's not synced. Now if we play it back, it will play correctly. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the man's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the... And he commanded this... That's awesome. Okay. Now let's get to animating the proper stuff. Select the face, remove all your rigging, so that you don't need to see those. It's really distracting. If you want to, you can also remove some of the other stuff, since they are not going to be making any kind of benefit to these. Let's see if it's faster, I hope. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, oh, it is faster, I'm getting a higher frame rate. Haha! Okay, let's close that. We do need the dope sheet though. Sometimes you do need to edit some of your inserted frames. Okay, open the VSE as well. Come on. There we go. Open this one as well. I want the VSE to fill this entire space at the bottom. There we go. Go VSE. And let's just up that. Okay. Now what I recommend for animating the O is that you use a mirror, but it's not required. If you really just sound things out to the extreme, you can pretty much grasp how far you have to stretch the mouth. In this case we will be using a default mouth stretch that is without a smile, because the smile is interfering. So let's go with the O. Let's make that our default 0.246. Make a note of this value if you use the same thing, because we do have to be able to widen the mouth as well. So starting with this is not smart. We have to start with a more controlled number. So let's go 0.246 or 264. 246. Just want to write this down. 0.246. That's great. Okay. Now our first words are "and he commanded." So let's narrow our selection down so that we only have "and he commanded." There we go. Let's play that back. And he commanded this, and he commanded this, and he commanded this. Okay, so we have commanded the as well. So this is "and he," this little section right here. So "and" has the mouth being wider. So let's create a space for the mouth to widen. Insert a keyframe and go "and" has to be wider. "And he" is about the same distance. Commanded is narrower. So let's go commanded, not too far, since this is a relaxed type thing. Commanded, manded is wider, and did is a little bit normal again. So let's use that 0.246 and keyframe that in. Okay, now let's look at that. And he commanded this, and he commanded this, and he commanded this, and he commanded this, and he commanded this. That is fantastic. Now let's just move the start frame over a bit. I'm just going to do a few words here so that you can just see the approach about up to there, because that's where our last keyframe was. Now let's look at that. Handed the steward of his hand, handed the steward of his hand, handed the steward. I think this is the steward. Yes, this is the. So the stops commanded the. Give that there. Commanded the. That is about at the same level, but steward, you have to start narrowing it at the S. Steward, there we go, and insert keyframe. Now go back and see. Handed the steward of his, handed the steward of his, handed the steward of his, handed the steward of. Okay, now steward tends to open up, so let's go to there. Let's say that's the opening, and let's normalize that to 246 and insert a keyframe, and let's look at that. Handed the steward of his, 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 handed the steward of. I think this is the of his hand. Yes, that's the of. So steward has to narrow, has to stop over there. So let's go about 256.256 and insert a keyframe over there, and of has to be narrow as well. Let's see if that's a keyframe. Yeah, there's a keyframe. Let's remove this. And of has to be of.
Handed this steward of his 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 handed this.
I think this is house.
His,
oh, this is of his. So it has to open back up to about there. Of his house. House is a big one. So let's go end and go house. There we go. Okay, let's quickly see that.
handed the steward of his house saying, 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 handed the.
That's awesome. I'll set that back to 1. Zoom out. And watch the whole thing play.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded.
And that's basically the principle. As you can see, this is a very time-friendly process in terms of animating. I know that some people prefer Papagayo and other apps like that. I have never worked with them before. I'm not the best at scripting, so that's why I prefer using shape keys and stuff like that. Even if I have a full facial rig, I would still prefer shape keys to perform the O. It's just much simpler. And you can still add other emotions in there, so let's give him a big goofy smile while he reads.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded the steward of his house saying.
See, it's cool. Let's just reduce the smile because it's kind of creepy. To about there.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying, and
just reduce the smile a little bit more. Okay, now, as you can see, we have our basic animation, but this is not going to be convincing when you try to, how do you put this, play only this, because the head is absolutely still, the eyes aren't moving, there's just no life to the performance. Now, a simple way to add performance is to animate using noise. This is procedural animation, if I understand the term correctly. The way to do that is by, let me just put the clothing back. There we go. That's much better. Now we're going to simply animate the head moving. So I'm going to select this neck bone, and I'm going to put in a keyframe, doesn't matter where. Let's just put it in at the first frame just for the sake of doing it. Click rotation. Now what you can do is you actually need all of them except the W. So select one and let's go into the graph editor because that's where we're going to be animating these. I want to close this area over here as well so that we have more space in the graph editor. Now, in order to animate like that, we are going to be adding modifiers. You click noise. Now, if you play this back, you'll see that his neck is going to jerk like crazy.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying,
You're seriously convinced. Okay, what you need to do is you need to increase this scale size, sorry. Strength has to be reduced to about 0.01 or 0.1. Depth you can add a little bit. Don't add too much depth. If you add too much depth, your head will practically disappear. Let me show you. See, it's just gone. There's nothing there. I found this out while I was running the tutorial through yesterday. So just keep that depth below 400 or along those lines. You have to keep it below 100. If you keep it below 100, you should be good. Let's change the face so that's unique. Let's change the offset so it's also unique, and the scale is fine. Now let's look at that.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying, and he commanded the.
Let's increase the scale a bit. It's a little too quick.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying.
Now you can't see it clearly if you're looking at it from a distance, but look at.
And he commanded the steward of his house saying. And he commanded the steward of his house saying.
You see, there's a very, very slight movement there. Now you do the same process with everything. Some you can make bigger, some you can make smaller. It's really up to you. The strength has to again be 0.01, offset, some depth, not a lot. Let's quickly see what that looks like.
And he commanded the steward of his house, saying,
That looks good. Let's add a little bit in here. Noise. Okay, this goes side to side. Now this you can play a little bit with. Let's give it enough scale. Strength has to be, let's try 0.05 instead of 0.01. Offset, phrase, some depth. Let's see what that.
And he commanded the steward of his.
Oh, bigger scale.
And he commanded the steward.
Let's reduce the depth.
And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying. And he commanded the steward of his house.
Let's just mute this. Thank you. Not marker. Yes, delete the marker. I want this hidden. So just click that, press H. It should be hidden. Could have just clicked the I. See that now. And let's just do that. See, now that looks much more natural. Let's just give this some more strength. I can see that just looks rather weird. That looks seriously weird. What if we put it to 1 and offset it a little bit so that his head is a little bit more centered? I think the scale is too big, or the strength is too big. I mean, for example, what does it look like over here? You can just play with these values. I'm sure you can achieve something there. So let's reduce the scale to be 30 and reduce the strength to be about 0.1, so we can just adjust the maximum strength. That's good. Now we can up the scale again to 300. It's like his head is slightly tilting over. Okay, that looks good. Now you can quickly animate the eyes, the eyelids, because I mean, after all, people do blink. It's not anything that is really new. So go rotation, and let's go 5 frames on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Add another keyframe so that the eyes are open again, and go 2 back and close them. Approximately there. Go insert, rotation. Now again, we need everything deleted except for the x-axis. Now the reason I'm showing you this specifically is because it makes your animation process a lot faster if you don't have to keep redoing something. I'm going to show you how to cycle your eye movement. So go back into the graph editor after duplicating this last open frame so that it looks like that before he blinks again. This represents the time before he blinks again. So go into your graph editor, select it, go cycles, select it, go cycles. Now you see, you can see it creates these little bumps. Now if you go back and you play it, now it needs to be a little bit wider, so let's go dope sheet and extend them out a little bit further. Let's go about there, and let's extend this frame. Now if you were to look at this just as an animation, see, that looks much more convincing. Now what you can do to also add some convincement factor to the eyes is you can simply add a bone constraint to copy the location of the camera. That means you'll always be looking at the camera instead of away from it. Let's just move the camera because this is looking really creepy. Instead of focusing on his mouth, let's focus on the head as a whole. Okay, that's good. Let's put it slightly at an angle. Turn it slightly there. Now if you look at that, and let's just have him speak a little, you render it out, you'll see something along those lines. If you go into node editor, you can quickly delete all the extra stuff. Simply add a vector blur. I don't have a Z-pass, let me just quickly give it a Z-pass. ZBass and a vector bass, and set it to be a high quality render. 32 is usually a fine value. Now if you were to render that looks good. Go performance, compositing, node editor, it's output viewer node, and go 3D view, give that another shot. Now we should see it. See, there's a slight blurring over here. Now before I leave you with this method, I want to just give credit where credit is due. I saw the baking idea from a guy in the Blender community on Google Plus called Jeff Smith. He used this same type of baking method to produce a small section of If I Only Had a Heart from The Wizard of Oz. And when I saw it, I was just like, I've got to work with this. This is so cool. So I just want to give credit where credit is due. I also want to give a shout out to VScorpianC tutorials, who's also doing a lip sync tutorial at the moment. He's using Make Human and Papagayo together, so I recommend you check out that series as well. I will leave links in the description to Jeff's profile and his examples of using baking, and also to VScorpianC's tutorial on lip syncing. So that's it, and have a great day, and God bless.